Hey, did you see that before we even said a word? Have you noticed that? Caitlin Clark, number 22, splash, logo 3. As cold as ice. After that, she walks rather than shuffles or jogs. You like that? She asks, walking straight into Tiffany Hayes' face with all the vigor of a woman who understands exactly what she did. Hayes then goes completely insane. Clark, too. Clark doesn't blink at all. Bring it on. Come on. Get up. That woman is made of different materials than the rest of us, and I say that not in an attempt to be flattering, but rather as a fact that has been verified. Because surviving is what Caitlin Clark has been doing in this league since the beginning. Take cheap shots without protection, absorb fouls without calls, and absorb an institutional mentality that appears to be really opposed to honoring its greatest asset. The entire empire is beginning to fall apart right now. Because Stephen A. Smith recently expressed what millions of people have been thinking on national television, and the evidence supporting his remarks is utterly disastrous. What's going on? We are peeling back the veil on the WNBA's battle against its own golden goose today. It's your boy Dre Fiver. This is Street Hoops. Fasten your seatbelt. This one delves deeply. Before we get to the commotion in the boardroom, the drama on the hot mic, and Stephen A. We need to discuss the spark that ignited the entire powder keg before demanding for someone's resignation on live ESPN television. As the 2026 season approaches, Caitlin Clark is more than simply a basketball player. She is a fully fledged member of the culture business. State Farm, Gatorade, and Nike the woman is currently running 18 nationally televised campaigns. I'll repeat that number. 18. She appeared in a Gatorade commercial featuring music by Travis Scott and Kendrick Lamar. The market demanded it, so some of the biggest names in entertainment lined up to be in the same frame as an Iowa women's basketball player. Because people stop scrolling when Caitlin Clark shows up on your screen. And her latest State Farm campaign, which debuted on WNBA opening night 2026, and ran throughout the entire season, was a creative, witty, clever piece of work built around her signature logo 3s filmed right there at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, with Clark herself saying getting back on set with the State Farm team always feels natural. The commercial went viral immediately, fans loved it, the internet celebrated, and Dre Fiver's personal take any healthy sports organization on the planet would have. Amplified that moment, they would have shared it, celebrated it, used it as evidence that their league had arrived in the mainstream cultural conversation in a way it had never arrived before. Not the WNBA. The WNBA's official accounts were silent crickets, and that silence, that one specific deliberate silence, tells you everything you need to know about what has been happening behind closed doors in the league's front office. Because this is not a new pattern, this is an institutionalized one throughout. Clark's first 2 seasons, fans noticed and documented that the WNBA's official social accounts were significantly slower to amplify Clark's highlights compared to other players. Reposting and celebrating take longer. Additionally, the league did not issue a press release commemorating the achievement when one of the biggest commercial endorsement deals in women's sports history, Clark's 8-year, $28 million Nike contract, the highest ever for a WNBA player, was announced. It was little more than a message that said, "Look what our sport has produced." And so, whether on purpose or not, the message conveyed was that we do not want you to be greater than us, and nothing talks louder than any news conference statement ever could. One of the most well-known voices in American sports media, Stephen A. Smith, has been yelling about this for months, but last fall's events changed his criticism from hot takes to recorded bombshells. The season had just ended, and Minnesota Lynx star Napheesa Collier, a 4-time All-Star, Finals player, and one of the most respected veterans in the league, sat down for her end-of-season exit interview. Instead of giving a typical exit interview, she read from a prepared statement for 4 minutes without hesitation, and she pointed the finger directly at WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. This is what you need to know about what happened in September of 2025, because it was one of the most significant weeks in WNBA history. Collier stated, and I want you to hear these words clearly. The real threat to our league isn't money, it isn't ratings, or even missed calls, or even physical play, as widely reported by ESPN, NBC News, CNN, and CBS Sports in the immediate aftermath. It's the league office's lack of responsibility. She continued by sharing a private discussion she had with Engelbert in February of the same year. According to Collier, she asked the commissioner directly how she intended to deal with the issue that players like Paige Buchers, Angel Reese, and Clark, the product's faces and revenue drivers, were earning so little money in their first 4 years in comparison to the value they were creating. The commissioner's response, according to Collier, was that Caitlin should be thankful that she earned $16 million off the court, since she wouldn't have any money without the platform that the WNBA provides. Additionally, according to Collier, Engelbert stated that players ought to be on their knees expressing gratitude to their fortunate stars for the media rights agreement she secured for them during that same session. Their knees. Now, when Kathy Engelbert addressed the media prior to Game 1 of the 2025 WNBA Finals, she denied uttering those particular remarks. She refuted it. However, she was unable to dispute this. Collier had communicated those remarks to them within days of the initial February meeting, according to several people who spoke with ESPN, indicating that this was not a last-minute idea. This was a contemporaneous report from one of the most reliable sources in the league. Additionally, Engelbert's first public answer to Collier was so ambiguous, corporate, and purposefully non-committal that it caused a second outcry on its own before she eventually refuted the remarks outright. She expressed disappointment with Nafisa's description of the discussions. That's all. No counterargument, no defense, and no details. Simply discouraged. And Dre Fiver's own viewpoint? It is not a defense to say that you are dismayed by the characterization of the most influential person in your organization when they are accused of urging players to be thankful and go on their knees. That is an admission of incapacity. Stephen A. Smith made essentially the same statement, albeit with a lot more vigor. Smith turned directly into the camera during ESPN's initial take and said, "I am quoting him directly from documented reporting, Kathy Engelbert, the league commissioner. For the record, let me say that you ought to step down. You must step down. Forget about it." He went farther. He described her first reaction to Collier as a feeble reply that was insufficient given the seriousness of the charge. According to him, there is a basic lack of leadership when a player of Nafisa Collier's caliber publicly criticizes the commissioner in such a way, and the commissioner's answer is just corporate language and silence. Smith responded right away when Clark herself stated during her own farewell interview that she respected Collier and believed she made many excellent points. He claimed that Nafisa did not lie and that Clark, whom he refers to as the WNBA's Golden Goose, was essentially verifying everything Collier had stated. She didn't hold back when speaking. She expressed how the league as a whole has been feeling. According to Smith's theory, a successful sports organization does not operate by viewing its biggest star as an issue that needs to be resolved. You manage it by using that star as the driving force behind everything you are attempting to construct. For the past 2 years, the WNBA has calculated that incorrectly. And the outcomes are precisely what you would anticipate. Let me now make the connection between the boardroom and the court, as this is the aspect that, in my opinion, the mainstream media has yet to fully put together into a cohesive image. Caitlin Clark should be thankful and on her knees when there is a commissioner who is said to have a private attitude toward her. What message does that give to every coach, referee, and player in that league when it comes from the top of your organization? What message does it convey when the league's disciplinary action is constantly measured in hundreds of dollars and courteous remarks, but the officials witness Clark being physically harassed every night? When a player receives a fine for openly criticizing the refereeing yet the officiating itself remains unaddressed for the whole of the season, what message does this send? It conveys the idea that she is not safe here. She is subject to the jungle rules in a different way than everyone else. After hearing that message, Sophie Cunningham made the decision to create a different one. In retrospect, Sophie Cunningham's entry into this league last year was among the most culturally significant roster additions in the history of women's sports. She returned to the Indiana Fever for 2026, specifically in her established role as Clark's enforcer, as reported by ESPN at the time of her re-signing. Not her enforcer, not her teammate. This word reveals what the Fever's front office knew that the league's front office did not. It is used in official reports, by fans, and by the media. Caitlin Clark needed a supporter who would go above and beyond what the administrators of the rulebook would not. And Cunningham completed that task in a manner that no one could have predicted. In a June 2025 game against the Connecticut Sun, after Clark had been poked in the eye and thrown to the floor inside the same game with inadequate officiating response, Cunningham threw J.C. Sheldon to the ground in the fourth quarter. 3 players were expelled after a fight broke out, and Cunningham did not offer an apology when she went to the podium. She stated it clearly. It was a build-up to the league failing to safeguard the WNBA's premier player for a few years. Ultimately, she was going to defend her teammates. That's what she does. It was a seismic response. She attracted more than 800,000 new social media followers in a single day. Sales of her jerseys surged. Her mailbox was overflowing with requests for endorsements. Additionally, a social media account posted a caption that stated, "I believe Sophie Cunningham is our only hope because the WNBA and WNBPA cannot protect their players." Let yourself be affected by that statement. Fans are hoping for a 6-foot guard from Missouri since the league is unable to defend its players. That is not a praise to Cunningham. Well, it is, but it is also a critique of an organization that has let down its most valuable asset at the most crucial point in its existence. Additionally, Cunningham expressed it more clearly than any expert could. Speaking to the media, she stated unequivocally that the escalation was a build-up and that the referees were heavily involved. She also included something that, in my opinion, went even beyond. According to her, this was not a snap decision. She would repeat the behavior because it was accountability for a trend. This is when Cunningham's tale becomes even more intricate. Because her intelligence has always been underestimated by the media. She started her own podcast, Show Me Something, in 2026 and has been one of the most open and humorous voices in women's basketball journalism ever since. Time frame. Cunningham publicly joked on the show that she wanted her $1,500 fine back if the WNBA's officials were acknowledging in preseason player meetings that they needed to improve this year. She paid money to state something that the referees themselves later verified was true, and she requested a reimbursement for the punishment she earned for being honest about officiating. That woman, who is grinning, is aware of her particular position in the narrative and is not scared of it. However, the 2026 season has shown that the fundamental issue still exists despite Cunningham's return to the team and the referees' promises to improve. Because the events surrounding the Indiana Fever's game against the Golden State Valkyries on Friday, May 22nd, served as a reminder that the forces working against Caitlin Clark did not retire in the offseason. With 22 points and 9 assists, Clark had a fantastic game. Logo threes, full-fledged trash talk delivered with a smile. Indiana prevailed 90-82. Additionally, Tiffany Hayes, a seasoned guard for the Valkyries, engaged Clark in a competitive altercation on the court that is what makes great sports great. That was basketball, and that was all right. It wasn't basketball that followed. Before the post-game press conference, Hayes was captured by a hot mic backstage. And her remarks on Clark, which were covered by several media sites, amounted to this. Clark would never be allowed to play the game if the officials began to call fouls on her. That's how she explains the dominance of the WNBA's most dominant player.